It's behind you now.
This is one of my first. I picked stuff up and I shoved it in here, and I always pick up the agenda to keep using next to the computer so that I don't have to keep looking back. What do I do? There it is.
This is the rose office. First one.
One more time.
Oh my God. Hello.
Hi.
Hello again, Jan.
Mine isn't very loud.
Hello.
Speak up, Mayor.
Lee, can you hear me? Okay. Is this our
Hello, Jan.
Good evening.
consultant?
Hello there. Fine, how you doing?
Thank you. Not as old as you. Thank you.
Oh. Oh, okay, cool.
Good.
Linda, thank you.
And I'm gonna take that
Sublime.
chocolate.
All right.
It used to be made by D'Onofrio and now Nestle, but they were my favorite, my very favorite. I had to bring those back.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, Bruce really
She got a sweet tooth, did she?
That's good.
Yeah, be careful, it has peanuts in it, somebody might, nobody here is allergic to peanuts, right? Let me know what you think of it. I wonder if they're gonna buy this one.
Okay.
Ready?
If it gets real serious, that goes back up. I would have liked to say that. That was gonna be nice. And there's some other words that go with that too.
Good morning, Phil.
Morning.
He confuses easily.
All right.
confuse me with facts.
All right. We're close enough,
We're
right?
about ready now.
Okay.
Spin the
Ready
tires.
to do the prayer? All right. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please rise and remove your hats for the invocation.
Our Father who art in heaven, we humbly bow our heads before this council meeting. We're thankful for this country which provides us the rights to go ahead and have free government. We're thankful for the men and women in our armed forces that protects those rights. We ask that you would bring them home safe and sound, and those that come home that need surgery, that thy spirit might be upon them and upon the surgeons that go ahead and repair them and give them their life again. We ask you to be with us this evening as we discuss and consider the amendments and the resolutions that are before us, that we might go ahead and understand the consequences of our actions. We'd ask thee to be with our neighbors, that they would understand also that we need to go ahead and work with our town. We ask for these favors and blessings in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. May we have the roll call, please?
I think so. Good evening. Councilmember McKee. Here. Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Wojcik.
Here.
Councilmember Hatch.
Here.
Councilmember Best.
Here.
Vice Mayor Croft.
Here.
And Mayor Marley.
Here. Introductions, presentations, and proclamations. We don't have any this evening, so we'll move right on to call to the public. Call to the public is an opportunity for the public to address the council concerning a subject that is not on the agenda. Public comment is encouraged. Individuals are limited to speak for 3 minutes. Total time for call to the public may be up to 30 minutes per meeting. Council action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date, or responding to criticism. Do we have anyone for call to the public? Yes, sir. It's a 3-minute timer on it.
That's okay. I can get this done in 3 minutes. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, my name is Ron Rumley. I've got 2 items I'd like to talk to you about today. I want to notify you, your audience, as well as the audience you have on television, that Yavapai Regional Transit for the 5th year is going to offer free rides to anybody who wants to ride the system, either around Chino Valley or into Prescott. You can get on and get off as many times as you want to. We're very happy to do this for Christmas, and we do it for our riders that ride with us all the time as kind of a reward, and also we're trying to invite new people to try the transit system. You can get a hold of us if you have any more questions by calling our number, which is 636-3602, or our website is www.yavapairegionaltransit.com. The second item I'd like to talk to you about is that last weekend, Sherry, my wife Sherry and I went to Wickenburg to the Bluegrass Festival, which we do every year, and we've been there for probably about 7 to 8 years. And this past weekend, we were so proud to be a member of and call our home Chino Valley. There was an outstanding group that came from Chino Valley and performed in front of the entire group that was there, which there was 500, 600, 700 people there. Keenan Hammock won the state championship for flat pick guitar, and Matt Tatum won second place for the mandolin. They were both from Chino Valley. And I'm telling you, they were part of a group called The Generation. The Generation won the state championship for old-time country band competition. I'm telling you, this group is just great. They are performing at the Chino Hometown Christmas, so I encourage everybody to look at the schedule, figure out when they're going to be there, and come and see them. I was so pleased when the whole Generation band got up there and played, and the voice of the crowd was unbelievable. It was no wonder they won first place. And so anyway, there's 8 kids in the band, 4 from Chino Valley High School and 4 from Prescott High School. And I'm telling you, we all ought to be very proud of the people and the kids that are coming up through our high school system and the talent that is there. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much. I knew you wouldn't probably hear about it because I know they wouldn't have said anything, but I think it's a good column for Selena to put in the Chino Valley Review.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Others for call to the public? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I'm here tonight to invite the whole community and you guys to the Hometown Chino Christmas, the 5th and 6th of December. And as you know, we're going to have entertainment, and this is worth coming to see no matter what. But we're going to have 25 beautifully decorated trees. We have 31 vendors that have already signed up and paid to be here. And we're going to have cookie decorating for all ages. And the Overflow Coffee is bringing in coffee and hot cocoa for free. You'll have, our senior center is supplying homemade cookies. And then and our culinary at the high school is having cookies there for you to decorate, the frosting and the goodies that go on it. And this is the 5th and 6th of December from 1 to 6 daily, with entertainment starting at 1:30 and going through to 6.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor, are you going to do cookie decorating?
Yeah, I wasn't going to be part of the talent,
Oh, you
so
were?
thank you. I tried to think of something smart alecky, but it didn't come. Others for call to the public. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor Marley, Vice Mayor Croft, and all of the rest of the council members. My name is Edith Spain. I'm a resident of Chino Valley. I know that many of you are disappointed that the GO bond did not pass. Should I say everything over again? Oh, okay. I know that many of you are disappointed that the GO bond did not pass. You must be sincerely concerned about alternative plans to guide Chino Valley in a safe direction. You now have a clean slate, but that slate must include clarity, lots of lead time, and above all, constituent input. This room holds few people, timing is crucial, and the public wants to hear from you, including all the gory details. As in exactly how striking down the bond has doomed Chino Valley, if indeed it has. If you need cooperation for the next steps, communication must improve beyond 3-minute calls to the public. We want to hear from you. Your constituents, for the most part, live on limited incomes. Chino desperately needs a balanced budget, but residents struggle to maintain theirs. If you need our thin dimes, help us accept exactly why. Tell us where each precious penny will go. We want success for Chino Valley. Ask us what we want for Chino Valley. Ask us exactly how much we will be taxed, and above all, exactly what it is that you need from us. We approved the long-range plan, but also need to hear those details. Please include input from the youth of this town as the gentleman was just referring to. Many can't wait to leave. Go to the high school and ask them what would make them stay. Tap their talents in art, music, sports, technology. Did you know that some will apply for e-scholarships, by the way, that give as much money as football scholarships? Anyway, tap their talents, encourage them to create an image of the Chino Valley that would hold them here. They are responsible enough to go beyond skateboard parks and hangout tables at Safeway. Place their images in high-profile community spots for all to see. Include social media opportunities for citizen input. Make council and citizen input visible. That's the kind of cooperation and unity that will result in a Chino Valley not yet dreamed of, one that might make your council dreams come true. Thank you.
Thank you. I got to commend Miss Spain. She asked for 5 minutes, and look at that. You're 13 grains shy, but I thought that was pretty neat. Thank you very much. Others for call to the public. Okay, call to the public is now closed. Response to the public, we did not have anything that needed to be addressed from our last meeting, so Ms. Spain will be the one that we address in our coming meeting in December. Current event summaries and reports. This item is for information only. The mayor, any council member, or town manager may present a brief summary or report of current events or ask a staff member to provide the same. Presentation on information requested by the mayor and council will be made and questions answered. No action will be taken. Before I ask if there are any committee reports, I can report on our committee to South America for chocolate retrieval that they did a good job. All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hatch.
It's a Peruvian candy bar. It's called Sublime. They had them 43 years ago.
They're good, and it tastes like it wasn't 43 years, so it was good. Somewhere in the darkness, my doctor is weeping because I'm not supposed to eat that, so fine. Are there anybody, does anybody have any council report, committee reports? None? All right. Before, Mr. Smith, did you have a report?
Just a quick update, Mayor. The administration's currently looking at its existing operations and expenses to see what we can minimize and what we can bring to council in the meeting in December to try and prepare for next financial cycle.
Okay, thank you very much.
Makes what assignment?
Major.
Okay. Before I read my mayor's report, and I believe there's copies out in the hallway of this if you need a copy to take home, but our folks on the television, I'm going to go ahead and read it for them. But before I do that, I wanted to just quickly apologize to our council and to our public for any concern or inconvenience caused by our town manager's recent employment search in Marshall, Texas. Over the past several months, I spoke numerous times with Mr. Smith as well as some of our council members about getting the town manager's employment contract onto our council's agenda. With all the other hot ticket items that we were dealing with, I didn't get it done in time. After several delays, I slated it for our October 14th meeting, then removed it in order to wait till the election was over. With his contract winding down and no discussion taking place on his continued employment with the town of Chino Valley, Mr. Smith began sending out employment inquiries in order to prepare for his family's future. A couple of weeks ago, Mr. Smith notified the council that he had been selected as a finalist for a position in Marshall, Texas. Since that time, many of our council staff and town employees have contacted Mr. Smith and asked him to stay. And on Sunday, November 16th, Mr. Smith withdrew his name from a final applicant list in Marshall before that selection process was completed. So this evening, we'll hopefully begin the process that should have taken place back in August. So I wanted to let you folks know about that. I had a guy call me up from the radio, and he had a lot of questions regarding that, and I thought I ought to let you folks know also. The mayor's report, and this is in answer to Ms. Spain's question in part. General obligation bond election results. Approximately 1 year ago, the Chino Valley Town Council and staff began looking for a possible solution to the ongoing drain of the town's general fund by the town's water and sewer enterprise funds. Monies which could have been used for road repair, recreation, or other programs were being used to pay operations and maintenance costs in these two funds with no foreseeable end in sight. Although recent rate increases had provided some relief, a permanent solution was needed. For the Sewer Enterprise Fund, the proposed solution was to refinance the wastewater treatment plant, thus completing the purchase and placing the plant entirely under the town's control. The plant, which had been voted on the plant, which had been voted on by the town's citizens in 2005, had been financed by an alternative method, which was based on projected growth in the town. For the water system, the proposed solution was to expand the customer base by purchasing the City of Prescott's distribution piping and customer base in Chino Valley, thus lowering water bills for Prescott's Chino customers and expanding the service area for the Chino water system. Your council realized that these were huge investments, but they also realized that the general fund could not continue to subsidize the other funds indefinitely. For these types of system purchases, the traditional tools are either revenue bonds, where the system pays for itself, or general obligation bonds, where the public pays for the system. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. The main disadvantage of the revenue bond is that it's a smaller instrument and therefore not as effective in quickly providing relief to the town. The main disadvantage of the general obligation bond is that asking people who are already oppressed by their federal government to pay even more taxes is never a popular decision. To their credit, the town council took the difficult road and on May 13th, 2014, voted unanimously to place the GO bond before the voters in the November election. This allowed the town's citizens to decide their own future. And I need to add a little something there. For the council to place it before the public allowed the public to vote. It didn't say that the council wholeheartedly approved of the GO bond. They simply said, we want the public to be able to express their thoughts. Continuing. On November 4th, the citizens of Chino Valley overwhelmingly voted the bond down. Unfortunately, the demise of the bond didn't cause the subsequent demise of the debts. The task remaining before council is how to address those ongoing costs and still maintain the quality of rural life that our citizens have come to expect. Chris Marley, Mayor of Chino Valley. So that'll hopefully be in the paper, Selena, sometime this year. Cool. Thank you. Anyway, I wanted our folks, our audience at home to hear that. And like I said, I think there's copies of the mayor's report in the hallway. Moving on to our consent agenda items. All those items listed below are considered to be routine and may be enacted by one motion. Any council member may request to remove an item from consent agenda to be considered and discussed separately. I received a note from our clerks that they wanted, did you want to pull consent agenda item B?
Yes, so
we can vote on it as amended. Oh, okay, we need to amend it. All right.
I would also ask to pull A, Mr. Mayor, for the purpose of abstaining.
Okay, pull alpha. Any others?
So we have Alpha and Bravo.
Excellent. Okay, Alpha and Bravo are being pulled, so we can vote on them separately. The chair would now entertain a
Are
motion.
you going to have them read the agenda items?
I hate it when you make me obey the rules. Yes, ma'am. Could we get somebody to read?
That's another case of beer.
It's another. Thank you.
You guys are getting expensive now. 6A, or 6C, consideration and possible action to accept the October 28, 2014 regular minutes. 6D, consideration and possible action to approve a memorandum of understanding between Phoenix Police Department and Chino Valley Police Department for use of the PPD's National Integrated Ballistic Information Network.
Move to approve consent agenda items C and D.
Second it?
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The first item pulled was item A, consideration and possible action to accept the October 7th, 2014 special meeting minutes. The
Make a
chair
motion
would
to
entertain.
approve consent agenda item A.
Second it?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that same sign. And any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. Consent agenda item B, consideration and possible action to, let's see, we got, did I do item A first?
Yeah,
Okay.
B is-
And item B is,
That's pulled.
okay. Consideration and possible action to accept the October 14th, 2014 regular meeting minutes.
Are you amending it? Is that-
Yes, if you'll notice on, I believe it's 2B, it says the mayor read the proclamation, but that was when he recognized the members of the general plan committee. So we just need to correct it
Okay.
from saying that you read a proclamation to recognizing the committee
Okay,
members.
yeah. And they all got coffee cards, I think it was?
They
or
sure,
they-
well, except for the ones that came back in the mail with no forwarding address, but yes,
Oh,
other
okay.
than that, they did.
Easy enough, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to approve these as
Motion to
amended?
approve consent agenda item 6, Bravo, with the modification.
Okay,
Second it?
okay, motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Abstain.
Oh, and abstentions, thank you. Action item 7A, consideration and possible action to adopt resolution number 14-1050, declaring and adopting the results of the special election held on November 4th, 2014. I believe, Ms. Lewis, you're up on that?
I don't have a whole lot to report, but other than the fact that we were able to fill in all the blanks. We got the official final results from the county late this morning, so I filled in the blanks, and you have a copy of the resolution highlighted so that you can see what we filled in. And then the official final results are also attached. So if anybody had any questions, we did have a 60.65% turnout, which is our highest
That's a
ever.
good turnout.
That was an amazing turnout for us, so,
All right.
yeah.
That is excellent. I'm glad folks in America are voting. That's a good thing.
Yes.
All
So
right.
if no one has any questions, you can vote on the resolution as it is with all the data filled in.
With all the data in. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, members of the council, I noticed one minor error in the resolution that I would suggest amending. In section 1, it says that the total number of ballots cast at said primary election, I believe that should read special election.
Yes, it should.
So with that correction,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. So noted.
Motion to approve, to adopt resolution number 14-1050, declaring and adopting the results of the special election held on November 4th, 2014.
Second.
Okay.
Maybe as amended.
Yeah, as amended?
As amended.
Okay, yeah.
As amended.
Thank you, Ms. Hatch. As amended. And we have a motion, and your second still stands? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And those who wish to dance can do that. So,
That's a fine.
all right. All right. Moving on to action item 7B, consideration and possible action to adopt that as our theme song. Adopt resolution number 14-1051, authorizing the application for a Clean Water State Revolving Fund CWSRF loan from the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona, or WIFA, for expenses related to wastewater treatment plant settlement agreement in an amount not to exceed $4,545,000, and adopt resolution Resolution number 14-1052, authorizing the application for a drinking water state revolving fund, DWSRF loan from WIFA for expenses related to the Prescott Water Distribution System acquisition in an amount not to exceed $3,442,500. Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to make one quick correction. We actually got the two numbers transposed on the resolutions.
Okay.
So the Clean Water Fund is the $3,442,500, and the Drinking Water Fund is the $4,545,000. So we just got those two flipped. And maybe another point of clarification down in the situation analysis, the town received a subsidized, the fourth sentence down, it says the status will allow the town to receive a subsidized interest rate, and they're talking about the disadvantaged community status.
Excuse me for just a second, Mr. Duffy. Hang on, for our council members, we're on page 49, correct?
That
of
is
our packet?
correct.
Okay. This is the one that I came into your office all panicked about?
That is
Okay,
correct, sir.
thank you. Thank you. Page 49, if you would.
Under situation and analysis, the fourth
Okay.
line down.
Okay.
Basically, in the status, the situation analysis, it had a subsidized interest rate of 25% on the wastewater projects and 20% on the drinking water projects. I think it should be 0.25 and 0.20. And Mr. Reeder will be here to explain the interest rate portion of the during the presentation
Okay.
today.
Yeah, I was a little panicked at the thought we were paying a 25% interest rate.
Right.
Yes, sir, you had a question?
Are we going to be able to ask questions as we go, or are we going to save them for the end?
Yeah, which would you prefer, Mr. Duffy? Should we hold our questions till the end of your presentation?
Well, maybe the most efficient way, Mr. Reeder's going to get up and talk a little bit about the WIFA financing and the loan, and then Mr. Smith has a brief presentation also.
Okay.
So maybe if we did all three, then we could just answer the questions as a panel. Would that? Or I can answer them during the presentation,
Yeah,
too. Whatever's up to you.
We'll forget them by the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're dealing with a special class of folks up here. Yeah, if you would, just at the end of each
Okay.
slide, if you could just ask and feel free to stick your hand
Yeah,
up and
just
we'll get you
stick
recognized.
your hand up and
okay? All right.
I'll definitely
And then I will, after we've had the full presentation, I'll ask our audience if they have any questions also. So, okay, go ahead,
Okay.
Mr. Duffy.
Well, tonight's presentation really is to present, is present information so that council can decide whether to pass Resolution 14-1051 or 14-1052. And essentially, this is two loans with the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona, which we lovingly call WIFA. One's a clean water loan, which is sewer, and one's a drinking water loan, which is for drinking water. So, and the projects that we're proposing to finance with these, one falls in drinking water, one falls in clean water. So I'm going to split out our water side and our sewer side and talk about them separately, and then I'm going to put them together and tell you the benefits of them together. Because really, and as for the town of Chino Valley, it's a utility fund. That's how we look at it. But we do keep track of the water side and the wastewater side separately. So I'm going to talk separately, then bring them back together. Some of the assumptions I've used during the presentation is that we're going to grow with 30 new connections to our water and sewer system per year. The adopted rate increases, which will continue to increase till January of 2017, will still go into effect. And all the revenue and expenses that I've used really come from our budget. So I took our actual data from 14, and then we projected using our budget projections forward. So the numbers you're seeing, you've seen before, and they're very consistent.
Okay, yes, sir.
That brings us to our first question. Somewhere down the line, we've got projections for the sewer plant. When we were guesstimating, I presume, $250,000 operation cost.
That's correct. And I have that.
My question is, what does that include? Does that include labor and insurance?
It's going to include all of our additional costs we need to operate the plant. So that should be everything.
So we'll be paying labor to run the plant out of this particular kitty, not out of the general plan.
Not out of the general fund, that's correct.
Okay.
That's
Now,
correct.
where did we come up with 250? That sounds like an awful easy round number.
Well, actually, that's from our Public Works Director, and just as a good projection of what it's going to,
It's
what's
not
going to take
based
up.
on any numbers that we were given by Mike Fan. This is some kind of a swag.
I can't answer that. Mr. Goodman?
If it's a swag, it's based off of doing this for 25 years' worth of swag. No, our projections, the $250,000, are consistent with where FAN is at on what their operational costs are. You have to remember, though, he factors in profit, he factors in the cost of every piece of equipment that goes out there, the trucks, everything that goes in there, because that's how he runs his business. We don't run it like that. So while his estimates are consistent with our $250,000, we will be able to be underneath that. But that does include actually hiring one new plant operator. We already have somebody on staff who is a grade 3 operator that we currently have. He's already reviewed the plans. He's been out there numerous times. Once the contract is actually executed and done, they will be working, my staff will be working with FAN staff until we're ready to actually take over the plant. It's shown in the contract as August of 2015. Our goal is to complete that and consummate that deal well before August. We'll most likely do it before the end of this fiscal year.
So we have had some input from FAN and what existing operational costs are.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say, we didn't sit down and actually compare notes, no. But our numbers are consistent with where he's running at right now on his operations, yes.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we see all of his numbers. We approve all of his payments. We know everything that FAN has got going into this plant. We approve all those on a monthly basis.
Okay.
So, yeah, our numbers are, again, to a certain extent, yes, it is a swag. And for everybody, it's a scientific wild guess. But we won't love the, I was going to leave the alone. But again, it's based off of doing this for 25 years also in my own profession. We're consistent with everything of what this type of plant is, a 0.5 MGD MBR plant. We're consistent with where we're at on how these plants operate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Before you fire back up, Mr. Duffy, I had asked Mr. Duffy this week about the 30 new water and sewer customers this year, and you said we'd had added 40 in last year?
Yeah,
something
last
like
fiscal
that?
year, we actually had 40 new residents, and
Okay.
30 of them actually connected to the water and sewer
Okay,
funds, so.
and that's
I
where
mean,
he got that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the conservative number we've been using in the budget. So we're using the exact same conservative approach we have,
Okay,
just to be consistent.
thank you.
Okay. So here's the problem. One, the utility funds, the water and sewer funds, have been running deficits for years. These deficits have been supported by the general fund and using carryover from the sewer fund, basically until the sewer fund ran out of cash. In this fiscal year, it was the first time that the sewer fund actually had to borrow money from the general fund to operate. Now, the town has made some really good decisions over the last couple of years trying to take care of this. The first thing is we passed the sales tax increase, so that gave us a little breathing room. And we increased our water and sewer rates. But they needed to be so much higher that we just did a 5-year plan instead of jumping them up to where they really needed to be to break these systems even. So right now, the water fund owes the general fund, as of June 30, $1,255,000, and the sewer fund owes the general fund $458,000. The current water and sewer rates were set projecting that we would add 435 additional accounts, and we've had some with growth, but we haven't come close to that 435. And of course, costs continue to go up, so yeah, you might add 30, but next year you're going to need 430. You got to keep after this stuff. So the bottom line is, we've paid our consultants to come in, and they've told us time and time again, we have to add accounts to get the systems profitable. And the enterprise funds are not solid enough to set any funds away for capital replacement. So we're living off our depreciation. We're not putting any money away. And I have a detailed graph in a few minutes that I'll show you how that is. Councilman McKee?
Okay. You're still not projecting on the 435, though?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
So I wanted to show you graphically what the do-nothing scenario, and this will tie into a graph that I have a little bit later in our presentation. We've set a reserve amount that we need to maintain for the general fund and utility funds, and it's about $2.5 million. We're just a little bit below that right now. Now, we also, from my perspective, we need about $1 million in the bank just to stay solvent, so we can make payroll, make the bills. Our revenues don't come in evenly over the fiscal year. Some of them are, we get them early, some we get late, some are seasonal. So a community our size needs about $1 million just to stay comfortably solvent. And if we keep on this scenario where we keep funneling our general fund dollars to the utility funds to keep them operating, eventually we're just not going to, our fund balances are going to go to zero, and we're going to have a really hard time paying our bills. Now, the reality is we know this cliff is coming, and we're going to be cutting other services in other areas, and we'll be bringing that to council during each budget cycle. So next budget cycle, depending on the decision tonight, will determine, what we bring to you as recommendations. So look at that graph now, and I'm going to show it to you a little bit later with all the different scenarios. This graph really shows you the accumulated deficit as it just grows every year, and the one in the middle in 16-17, 4,134,000, somewhere in that fiscal year, we're just not going to have enough cash. We're going to be down to zero, and it's going to be really tough. So this is just a different representation of the prior graph. So what are our options? Our first option is to acquire the Prescott water system using a WIFA loan. And it is a WIFA loan, but it's really, we've called it a revenue bond. It's semantics. It's a WIFA loan paid back by the users of the utilities or the systems. And our second option is to refinance the FAN settlement through a WIFA loan. So let's look at the water side, then we'll go to the sewer. The water Prescott acquisition is, we'll acquire Prescott for $3,145,000. Thank for Councilmember McKee brought to my attention. She wanted to know the connection amount, and that's $1,100,000. The Wilhoit acquisition we're estimating to be about $300,000. Now, the really good thing about using WIFA versus just going out and borrowing the money, besides an extraordinary interest rate, is they're going to give us forgivable principal. Now, that $636,000 is not confirmed by WIFA, but during our discussions and all the numbers that drove these figures, they have vetted and they've used for their analysis to prove our loan. They said, leave that number in there, which tells me that there's a good chance that with Mr. Reeder and myself that maybe we can get down there and get that number a little bit higher. They do have more funds available, but of course it's competitive. There's other communities looking at them. So the net loan amount is going to be about $3,900,000 with an annual payment of $261,000. This will acquire 655 Prescott accounts and about 100 Wilhoit accounts. And the other benefit is it's also going to acquire all that infrastructure and that backbone. And we have a graph to show you that in a few minutes. Now the water fund, and these graphs are pretty similar, so I've made them so you can see just each scenario. So let me explain this one. Right now, the blue amount, the $60.13, are where our rates should be if we had our if we had our water fund operating at break even. So that shows you how far under it is. Our current rates are $36.48. Now this is the average rate per customer, okay, or the average bill per customer. So you can see with a little growth, those 30 homes, it gets smaller and smaller every year, but it's still way off. And the difference in that graph, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, the difference in the middle there is really, those are the accounts that we need to have. If we had the 455 accounts, these numbers would be pretty close right now. So the chart below shows the deficit, and it does go down every year, but I didn't run it out far enough to see how far it's going to, where it's going to break even, but it's too far out to be reasonable. We need to do something with the water system. Now, acquiring Prescott, what it does, and the dark red bars are the graphs you just saw. The pinkish bars are the ones if we acquire Prescott. 14-15 has no change because even if we acquire them, it's going to take about a year to get them hooked up and the money to come in. So I think I assumed that July 1st, we got July 1st of 16, we get our first dollar in. But you can see the rates, the 60-13 goes down to 42-11 and gets really close, really fast to where our current rates are going to go with our adopted rate increases. And as conservative as we're projecting here, I think we're going to be breaking even probably before 15-16. But I'm still going to say we need to be conservative. And as you can see, the deficit decreases by about 60% right away. So it really helps. Now, the water system, based on the number of customers and the formulas we used, still takes a while to break even, but your deficit gets down to a very manageable amount that you could probably, with maybe cost cutting and other measures, figure out a way to get that down to zero. So it sets the foundation for the water side of the utility system to actually get even and start being solvent. The sewer fund, and I look at this as we have an agreement with FAN to pay them starting January 1st, 9% interest over 10 years. So right now, this is really just refinancing it. We're refinancing this loan that we already have out. It's debt we already owe. So the $3,310,000 is the refinancing. We want to go ahead and purchase the screen because, again, we don't have capital money to buy the screen. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm still having a hard time. We're paying FAN to run that plant. Why are we paying for something that we're paying him to take care of, $132,000? And if that's not in the contract, we better make darn sure it's in the new one.
Yeah. Thank you. And this is a question I had asked our town engineer earlier. Yes, sir.
Well, hopefully, if we do this, there is no new contract because we're doing all this with in-house staff from here at this point on. The reason why is because technology has changed since 2004. The original design called for a screen that was not as sophisticated as the Huber screen, which is what this one is. And as you saw, for those of you who went on the plant tour, the existing screens that we have out there are made of plastic. They're just plastic is all they are. FAN is responsible to maintain the plant in accordance with the original design. The town's the one that created the original design. So FAN is saying, I'll put back this screen if you guys want me to. It's not any good. It won't last you guys as long as what we've been doing, but if you want me to, we'll be happy to. And he could do that under his existing contract. And then when we take this thing over, this is now going to be ours to fix in the future. So what FAN has offered to do is I'll pay what I would have paid on the other screen to the new Huber screen, which is what this one is. And in turn, that will give us something that will last a good 20 years.
Just briefly for clarification, we still pay the parts per our discussion.
Yes.
And that was something I was unaware of in our old contract.
As parts wear out through normal wear and tear, the town pays for it. Yeah. Under the existing contract, the town pays for the electricity on the plant. Under this contract, it's been a horrible contract for a long, long time. Okay. But, and that's why we're trying to get out from underneath this thing. But this is why going to the Huber screen will give us something that will last 20 years.
I believe you had a follow-up.
Yeah, just for clarification for the public, how much longer are we keeping FAN on running that plant and continuing to pay him the $21 a month?
Under contract, I believe it's August of 2015 is when we will, by contract, as you heard me say earlier, if this is all approved, my staff is going to start working with those guys immediately. And we will accelerate that as quickly as possible. And when my guys feel they are ready to rock and roll and run it on our own, we will sever that contract at any point we can. August is the last when it will become ours, but we can cut it short at any time we want to.
Is that the point in time at which we stop paying the $21 a month per person?
Yep. And the sooner we stop paying it, the sooner we get all this stuff into the black. And that is exactly what our goal is. If I can do this by April or May, but I have to hire a new plant operator because under DEQ standards, we have to have 2 on duty, or we have to have 2 on staff, I'm sorry. So we have to go through some personnel machinations on ourselves, and if we can get this thing done by April or May, I will be happy to.
Okay. Did you have
Did
another
that answer your question on the screen, though?
Okay.
Thank you.
It was interesting. Quite a few of the council members went out and did a tour of the plant, and getting to see the difference between the screens was good.
It's
for us.
enlightening.
Yeah, enlightening. Yes, sir.
Basically, this is an upgrade. This is not a repair. This is really an upgrade.
That's exactly right. This is some of the latest technology in MBR-style membrane batch reactor plant screens. And as I said, it's technology that wasn't around in 2004.
Okay. Just a brief interruption, though, Mr. Gritman, for our audience's benefit, both at home and here. It sounds like it's just an upgrade, but one screen is down. We're operating with one. If that one remaining one fails, a lot of wonderful stuff will go through and tear up our membranes, which then will be a healthy repair bill.
Yes,
So-
there are actually two screens that we operate on. We actually rotate between the two screens. The one screen that we have is currently down, and when you go out there and see it, it's literally off all of the presses and sitting off to the side. Jim Miley, the gentleman who actually picked it up, said, "This is the one, guys," and you can see it's just plastic. And so right now, we are operating on one screen and one screen only. This Huber screen will replace both of them, giving us a truly viable system. But
Okay,
the
that
plant
was-
still, at some point in the relative near future, we're going to, I should say relative, sometime in the next 2 to 5 years, discussions are going to have to start taking place about plant expansions. That's not part of what we're talking about right now. But don't think that once we get this plant that we're just done being in the wastewater business. There are some new things that are going to be coming down the road in the years to come, too.
Okay.
This is
we'll
just the
deal
first
with-
step.
Yeah,
Let's
deal
not
with
muddy
that.
the water.
Yes, sir, you had a question.
I think you answered the question, but this upgrade, 132 grand, is for both screens?
Yes.
Okay. One that's in dire need immediately, the other down the road?
Yeah, we're down to one screen right now, and if our existing screen breaks, as the mayor said, we'll be fertilizing some large areas of Old Home Manor right now.
Yeah, we can pass on that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Also, on those screens, the new one, the one you're calling the Huber screen, not only is it more efficient screen, but it lasts a lot longer.
It's stainless steel.
Right.
It's made out of stainless steel, not plastic.
So the idea is it's not just an upgrade like putting chrome wheels on your car.
No.
This is a very usable, it
Yeah.
makes sense, it's efficient, and
Yes.
it's gonna last a lot longer before it needs to be replaced down the road.
Exactly.
Excellent. You had another question, ma'am?
Yeah, I wish you would go over for the public, who came up with the estimation on buying Wilhoit? A reminder.
Okay.
The 300,000 that we have in there for the Wilhoit acquisition, Dan Jackson, we have under contract to actually do the analysis to give us a good number on what that $300,000 is. We're waiting on Wilhoit to get current with the Corporation Commission. Right now, they're 1 year behind on all of their financials, and Dan uses those financials in the creation of the valuation. It's one of the methods that he looks at in terms of cash flow. And so we've used the $300,000 as a pretty safe estimate. When we did the last valuation of the Wilhoit Water Company back in 2009, I believe is when it was, it came in at 100,000. I'm sorry, 100,000. They have since gone through some rate increases. They have since done some significant arsenic expansion over there. That we believe that our number is more than conservative to cover where Dan will come in at. Did that answer your question?
Did you have a follow-up?
So we don't know what they've asked, we haven't done any negotiation?
Oh, no,
we're
we've met
doing
with
a
Mr.
guesstimate.
West. We've met with Mr. West, and he's aware of our numbers that we're talking about, and we're in the ballpark. Yep.
Okay. Oh, and-
Jim
and
West
we'll-
is the gentleman who owns and runs the Wilhoit Water Company.
Right, and hopefully, as we're doing this presentation, it'll come out, we're not buying the systems tonight. What we're trying to do is, and
Set the
Mr.
financing.
Yeah, Mr. Duffy and I were talking about this earlier. It needs to come out fairly early in the presentation for our audience's sake, that they know that we're not buying the systems tonight. We're simply asking for permission to get, to fill out the loan paperwork, as it were.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, significant negotiations have to be done with both City of Prescott and, well, Prescott's the big one.
Yes,
But,
sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Wojcik, did you have a follow-up, or were?
The question I had was, I thought that the Wilhoit system was trucking in water because they didn't have enough supply, or is that a different?
They had tied to Prescott for a number of years. They have their arsenic hits over a little over 70 coming out of the ground, limit's 10. So they have a coagulation filtration process in place over there. My staff has gone over and looked at it. We're not proposing to utilize their well. When we acquire their system, we will tie them into our water system and pretty much just abandon everything that's there. It's not the type of system that would fit with our processes that we have. We have looked at it, though.
But we would tie them into what is now a Prescott system.
That's why it would be on the
Right.
heels of the acquisition of the Prescott system. Prescott at one time had them tied in for about a 2-year period and finally told them, you have to get your arsenic system up and running. And that's kind of what forced them. WIFA actually gave them a loan in order to get that arsenic treatment system up and running. So that's, and all that will be rolled into the negotiations, so.
Okay, cool. No further? Okay. Thank you.
Mayor?
Mr. Duffy? Oh, you had a question, ma'am?
Yeah, these are all estimates, and if we
Right.
get the money in this amount, and it's well over the amount of what we need to buy these out, how will those extra funds be used?
Well, that'll be your council's choice, of course, but with
Because
this,
as I understand, you can't give them back once you take it, or can
no.
you give them back?
Mark, you want to answer that?
It's a good question.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Mark Reeder with Stiefel Nicholas, the town's financial advisor. Good evening. The way the WIFA program works is that at some point, if you adopt a resolution authorizing staff to proceed with closing a loan or closing 2 loans, it'll be a not-to-exceed amount of X dollars. And so you'll close accordingly, and if there's monies left over, you don't draw it down. That's the way the WIFA program.
Okay.
WIFA program is real flexible in that regard, and you only pay interest at the moment you draw it down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then we'll amortize whatever the balance is we pulled down. So, back to the sewer fund refinance with Dan. The loan amount includes $478,000 in forgivable principal. Now, WIFA has confirmed that amount based on the GeoBond analysis that they did, and because our sewer rates are so high, they've gone ahead and guaranteed that amount. So our loan will be $2,963,000, our net loan at the end of the day. Annual payment about $199,000. So the FAN agreement versus WIFA loan. The FAN agreement is for 10 years at 9% interest. The WIFA loan is 20 years at less than 3% interest. Annual payments of $503,000 versus annual payments of $199,000 helps our cash flow by $300,000 right away. Total interest over the term of $1,722,000. Over the term of the WIFA loan is about $1 million. Plus the forgivable principal of $478,000, we have a total savings of about $1.2 million by refinancing this loan. So, and that's a lot of money, and don't want to sneeze at that. The sewer do-nothing scenario, the same thing with the water system. The sewer has the same problem. The 7771 up there is where the sewer system ought to be today if we were charging at break even. And this is just to cover our cost. Right now, we're at 5831. As you can see, however, the sewer system does go profitable or goes positive, let's say, in fiscal year 18 and 19. And the math on that is pretty simple. Our rates are going up from 5831 to 7902. That $24 or whatever times 1,700 customers times 12 months a year adds up to about $425,000 in revenue, in fees that we're pulling from our customers. That, in combination with saving with the wastewater treatment plant throwing $200,000 towards that $500,000 debt service payment, still brings it into the positive real quick. So even though the do-nothing goes positive, it's still not a good thing, particularly since we still have to cover $1,350,000 in deficit over the next 4 years. And we're paying it at 9% interest, folks. And in today's world, as Mr. Reeder will be happy to explain, 9% is a lot. So if we refinance FAN, this is what it looks like. And the green bars on the bottom chart show how we're still in a deficit that first year and the second year, but by the third year, we're clearly out of it. And as you can see, the rates go from 67.98 to 58.31. The difference in the break even is that interest component that we have. And within 3 years, it flips. So we're actually charging more than our break even on it. So that's why the sewer fund refinancing just makes perfect sense. It gets us on stable financial footing within 2 fiscal years. I did want to explain that the net cost from the wastewater treatment plant, the $21 per month fees, which we call the CM at risk, construction management at risk fees, the fiscal year 15-16, I only have 10 months because our contract starts on ends at August 31st. But let's go out to 16-17. That's 12 months of those fees that we're paying, and we're paying FAN $469,000 now. Well, if we don't have to pay them, that money stays in our bank account. We pay the additional wastewater treatment operating expenses of $257,000, and then the loan payment from WIFA, the fees we're bringing in actually pays for the additional operating cost and the debt service. So it mathematically works out to basically a break even. But as we get more houses and the growth, it's a smart thing to do. So the really interesting thing is, we have these two components, but let's put them together as a utility fund, because as a town, we need to look at the big picture here. And right now, our combined water and sewer rate is, for our average customer, is $94.79. It needs to be $128.11 today. But if we combine the water and sewer, and it's really the sewer initially, but the water fund helps out, our deficit pretty much goes away in fiscal year 16-17. And so we have essentially 2 years, in 24 months, we've got our utility systems stable and on good financial footing.
Just for our council and our audience's benefit, when Mr. Duffy and I looked at these charts, I said, so basically around fiscal year 17-18, we can start hopefully reducing some of our costs. And Mr. Duffy reminded me that equipment is still getting old. We don't want to do that too quickly, but at least it'll put us into a position where the council at that point in time will be able to say, where do we go with this? We're actually solvent. What
Right.
a scary thought.
It would put the council in a better, it'd be nice for the council if I came to you every year and say, hey, we have $600,000 in the extra in the utility fund. What do we want to do with it? Well, one, we have to pay back the general fund. We know that. And maybe once we're profitable, we can pay them back at $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
We need to put a few $100,000 a year away for capital improvement. So, okay, and we have system expansion would be good. So we have things that we can use the money for, but rates are one of those 4 components that we should look at. And it'd be nice to be able to give you as a council the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, to actually be good guys
It would be
for
great.
once. Yes, sir.
One other problem I have with both of these proclamations is that they refer to, both, Section 2 said that they'll be paid from revenues from the utility system and/or revenues from transaction privilege sales taxes. I mean, are we looking for sales tax to pay this off?
Well, that actually has to do with the pledge, what the town's pledging, the resources we're pledging to pay the debt. And I'm actually going to defer that to Mr. Reeder during his presentation and let him explain how pledging works.
I'd like to strike that from the
No, we can't.
proclamation.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that because WIF is going to require it. But let me have Mr. Reeder explain that to you
All right.
during his presentation. Is that right? Okay. He'll do a much better job than I will, I guarantee you. Okay.
You had a question, Ms. Hatch, before we go on?
Yeah, I'm somewhat bothered about them being combined. If the users pay, when we do the, if we're to do a revenue bond kind of issue to pay it back, and the users pay, if you combine the two, there's no way to separate them out. The people that are just on the water system,
I'm only combining it for presentation purposes only. We keep the water and wastewater system completely separate. The water system will pay its debt, the sewer system will pay its debt.
so you don't use one to support the other.
No, only if you guys want us to. But for
Well, I
right
thought
now, the only thing that's supporting the other is the general fund. So if the sewer system becomes positive, goes to the black, then we no longer have to pull money from the general fund to support it. But if the water system's still negative, we're still going to pull money from the water system until it's positive.
You bet.
Or from the general fund until it's positive, sorry.
But one quick clarification before Ms. Hatch's next question. As you said, this was simply for presentation purposes. You were showing us the big picture if we finance both of them.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
Right, that's all I'm doing.
Yes, Ms. Hatch.
If you're going to address the change in rates for people who are currently on Prescott Water at all?
No.
Because they have just, actually today, they met for a public hearing about rate increase.
Okay.
And that information was provided to this council.
Well, I have
I
not-
think people on the Prescott Water System would want to know if their rates are going to go up before, you reach out on this.
Yeah. Well, the quick answer is Prescott Water users now pay a 30% premium on top of what Prescott Water users in Chino Valley pay 30% more than a Prescott Water user in Prescott. Plus, our rates in Chino Valley are less than the Prescott base rates. So we've been throwing around the number, it's not exact, but the Prescott water users should see about a 40% decrease in their water rates from what they're paying today as soon as we acquire the system.
Okay.
By the way-
10%?
40.
But by the way, they charge people in the county 39% more.
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And I've looked, it's, the last time we did our rate increase, I did look at the Prescott Water rates, and they were going up faster than ours, so, and now they're talking about it again.
Yeah, the
so.
hearing was today, they're going to vote on it at their
Yeah.
next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So, this is sort of a recap from the first graph that I showed you, just showing where the fund balances go. And you can see the very bottom one, the red one, is the original one that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation. The orange one is if we just purchase Prescott, you can see we still dip pretty low. Our fund balances are dangerously low to go into zero. If we just refinance FAN, our fund balances, we stay above the solvency line, but barely. But if we do them both, then our fund balances actually start to increase sooner and stay above the solvency. However, if you look at the difference between where this bottoms out and where our reserves want to be, there's about $1 million sitting right there, or $750 to $1 million, depending where you're at. This is the area that we need to talk about in the next budget cycle, and Robert's going to expound on this a little bit more, that maybe we need to cut some costs here so we can get this number closer if we want to keep our required reserves. So, and Robert's going to address that in just a few minutes. This is everything, the two projects put together, a total of $7,555,000, less the forgivable principal. We don't know that. Now, your resolutions are based on the $4,545,000 and the $3,442,000, a not to exceed amount. But we do know that the forgivable principal is going to be there on both. And we need to add in a little bit for the debt issuance costs. We probably got $100 and some thousand on each of the issues on that. So, so we're going to approve the maximum amount, and then when the loan documents come back to you, if you approve both of them tonight, the clean water for the FAN buyout will have to you before the end of this calendar year, before December 31st. And at that time, you'll see the exact amount on the loan documents that we're approving. And then the drinking water loan, I think as soon as we have the Prescott acquisition agreements and you've approved those and get that number firmed up, then we'll be bringing those loan documents. So sometime between January and December or June of 15. I do want to talk quickly about the utility fund's fixed assets. And I think this number it's almost shocking to see how much the town has already invested over the years in both their water fund and sewer fund. Their water fund, they've invested $7.4 million in infrastructure, non-depreciable land, water rights, et cetera. And in the sewer fund, most of it's in infrastructure, and that's your pipes in the ground. And then, of course, the plant, the buildings and improvements. Now, a lot of the infrastructure, the new pipes that we're putting in the ground today are going to last, 50, 75, a long time. At some point, we do need to put money aside, for their replacement. But the buildings and equipment, they're going to need money pretty quick here. Things are going to start wearing out, and we need to be responsible and to run these utilities responsibly. We should be putting money aside. Now, what that percentage is, I threw 5% at it. That'd be nice. Maybe we can only afford to do 2% for a couple of years and then get it to 2.5% and 3%. But we should be putting money away so then when we have the $5 million repair or the expansion or whatever it is, we don't have to borrow as much money to do it, or maybe we can pay for it out of pocket. Yeah. That's a responsible way to run these utilities. So understand that we're living off our depreciation right now. We're not putting anything aside. And it's not the best way to run your utility funds. So our solution is, our recommended solution is refinance FAN, acquire Prescott and Wilhoit, and then start building capital reserves in the utility funds for asset replacement. Maybe just a quick summary. Refinancing FAN saves us $1.2 million. Purchasing Wilhoit and Prescott will add those accounts that we've been needed to break even. Yes, ma'am.
On the page before on your combined projects, you have a total of $7,555,000. If you add the total project amount going across,
This
that
year.
really comes out to $7,987,500.
You are absolutely correct. Yes, because I didn't bring the 300,000 over and I didn't bring the 132.5 over to the total column. You are absolutely correct. Thank you. That's why you're head of the finance committee. You are right. You are absolutely right.
So what is
And
the total?
Joe?
Yes, ma'am.
Another observation I made on the Stifel report to the committee earlier this year. The Prescott purchase and interconnection, the Wilhoit Water Systems purchase, and the purchase of the wastewater treatment totaled $7,275,000, which is quite a bit under the $7,987,500.
Yeah, because I think that included the water line expansion if the GEO bond had gone through. So it included all the water extensions also.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Finishing up the summary, both actions will result in the utility funds actually being in the black by fiscal year 16-17, and our general fund subsidies will be eliminated, and that's really important. So we can use those funds for roads or other things in the general fund. The council actions, as I see them, tonight, we're recommending approving Resolution 14-1051 and 14-1052. By December 31st, we'll have the loan documents for the FAN refinance to council for your approval. Spring of 2015, by spring of 2015, complete the purchase agreement with the city of Prescott. I think that's our next major project that needs to be completed. By then, sometime after that's completion, before June 30th, 15, we'll approve the WIFA loan documents for that side of the loan. And by June 30th, 15, as soon as we can, we'll, of course, negotiate the purchase of the Wilhoit system. So that's all I have for right now. I was going to ask Mr. Reeder to come up and talk about the WIFA process and the interest rates and et cetera.
Mr. Duffy, at the very beginning, you had spoken about how we got the wrong resolution numbers at the top of these, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but they are the, it's the dollar amounts.
Dollar amounts.
The dollar amounts were transposed,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And they do add up to the right on the total. So with that, I'll ask Mr. Reeder to come up and.
Okay.
Hello again. Always have a handout when you see me. I apologize for that, but always think some of those may are coming down.
Okay, thank you.
There's probably enough here, I'm hoping. I'm gonna let myself a copy, if not, I'm gonna have to grab it.
Same.
Is there enough copies? I think there might be a couple extra for.
I didn't get one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening again. Mark Reeder with Stifel Nicholas, the town's financial advisor. Wanted to discuss a little bit about, expand upon what Mr. Duffy was talking about the WIFA program. And I know that, I think I've been in front of council several times over the last year. I know this is nothing new to you, but I wanted to kind of give you an idea where we stand now. We know that borrowing money you take very seriously, correct me if I'm wrong. And we know that when you do that, you want to make sure that you achieve as low of an interest rate as possible, because obviously that takes pressure off what was just described in your budget and all the calculations and so forth and so on. So the first spreadsheet I gave you, the first slide here, on the right-hand slide is a revenue bond index. This is an interest rate index, for lack of a better term, that we use in the bond market. And on the right-hand side, you'll see where rates are now, and it goes back 35 years. It goes all the way back to 1979. And I always, when I show this chart to people, I always like to ask them, where were they in the early 80s? Remember when these rates, remember the mortgage rates back in the early 80s? Some people have told me I was just getting out of college back then. I'm giving away my age a little bit, but I did not have a mortgage, but I know people that had mortgages of what, 14%?
I have 18.
18. Anybody higher? 18%, unbelievable, right? So that's on the left-hand side, obviously. So we put together this chart to let you know historically where we're at, and you could not be borrowing money at a better time. I don't think that there's any secret to that. You all know that mortgage rates are low. The bond market is on fire right now, for lack of a better term. The municipal bond market in which you borrow is extremely attractive right now for a variety of technical reasons. The economy is still sluggish. We have a lot of geopolitical concerns out there, as you all know, every single day, where something's going on around the world, and there's what's known as a flight to quality to municipal bonds, and that's driving down a lot of cash chasing a few bonds. Volume is down across the country. Cities are not borrowing for new money projects as much as they were in the past. Eventually, they're going to probably have to, but volume is down, demand is up, sluggish economy, geopolitical concerns, what have you. All that is resulting on the right-hand side of the graph where we stand now. And if you look on the left-hand side, there's only been over the last 35 years, there's only been 4 other times in which they were lower than where they are now. We had a low point in early 13, if you recall, and if you look on the graph here, back in early 13 is when we hit the all-time low, if you remember. And then if you remember, the Federal Reserve came out and misspoke about quantitative easing, if you recall. And I like to point this out to our city council members and city managers and finance directors to show you how fast markets move. Kind of amazing how fast they can move. So at any rate, we're over here on the right-hand side, which is very, very good news for your town as we speak. Now, go to the next page, please. And Mr. Duffy, I think, did a good job of describing some of this, but I'll get you into a little more of the detail. As you know, WIFA has 2 programs that Joe talked about. We have a drinking water, which is water, and we have a clean water, which is sewer. They break them out because they get different federal funding for each program, basically, make a long story short. WIFA is a great resource for cities and towns like Chino Valley. We have been to WIFA, as you know. We have been to their board of directors on these projects. Their board of directors and their staff have approved these projects. Now, we obviously had them approved assuming the GO bond passed, and we also had them approved in the event you would have pursued these projects on a revenue bond based only. So what WIFA does, this interest rate will float until we close. And hopefully we're going to move expeditiously here, especially as it relates potentially to the FAN contract if council approves it. We want to move expeditiously, I believe. We would like to potentially close it by 12/31 if possible, and that is potentially doable if we all work together closely and we work hard together. On the water side of the equation, what WIFA does is they take the natural AAA general obligation bond index. They take what's known as the 20-year index. City of Phoenix, City of Salt Lake City, these are natural AAA cities that borrow the lowest that there possibly is in the municipal bond market. Okay, you're an A+, AA minus city on your own. You're an A+ on your own. These are AAA natural, so they borrow at very, very low costs. Right. So if the City of Phoenix, if I can use them as an example, because they are a natural AAA, they would borrow today on the 20-year end of the curve 2.8%. WIFA gives your city a 20% subsidy off that rate. So 2.8 less the 20% would suggest on the water side of the equation, if we were to close today, you would borrow at 2.24%. Right. Now, Mr. Duffy's been using 3, conservative finance director, which is good. If we close today, your rate would be right around 224. You're going to get roughly 636,000 of a grant. We call it forgivable principal. So really, if you think about it, if you factor in that grant money, you're borrowing at less than 2% when you kind of factor in the fact that you don't have to pay back 636. Pretty amazing opportunity, I think, for the town. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
By way of full disclosure, would you please disclose your fees in all of this?
I don't know what our fees are yet,
Can you
Mr.
give
Mayor,
us an
members of the council.
estimate, please?
I don't. I don't have an estimate
What's
right
the
now.
percentage? You're coming here telling us about money. Certainly you know what kind of a percentage you take out of this.
Right,
We're entitled to know that, and I think the public's entitled to know that.
right. I'll be honest with you, our fees are based on the SAVE RFP under which we were hired under. We were hired under an RFP, and our fees are based on the principal amount of the issue. And I just haven't looked it up, to be honest. I don't have it with me, but I will share that with you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Duffy, do you have that agreement? Can you go and check that for us? It's
I'm
avoiding
not trying
the
to hide
answer.
anything, Mr.
No,
Mayor, members
no.
of the council. I'm not trying to hide anything. I just don't have it.
Okay.
It's based on an RFP. It's a reasonable fee. We'll share it with you next council meeting.
Okay.
After we've, if I give you a number,
We're
it just
voting
may
on
not
it
be
now,
right.
and I would like the public to know
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
range.
yeah.
Okay.
The next meeting when we come, we'll have updated information. This was more of an informational session.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Fair question. I appreciate that. And I apologize I don't have the number. I just have not looked it up because it's based on the RFP. Okay. Drinking water. So that's the drinking water. On the clean water and the sewer side, you get a little higher subsidy. WIFO gives the city, and you were designated as a disadvantaged community because of your high rates, which you benefit from, which is good. They give you an extra 5% on that, so if you were to close today, you'd be about 210. I was kind of half kidding with Joe a few weeks ago. It would really be nice if we could get that down to 199 or something, but I'm not sure if we're going to be able to. But if we were to close today, about 210. And then on that one, as he mentioned, the current grant or forgivable principal is about 478, or about 14% of the total project. So, I think great opportunity for the town. Great opportunity for the town to acquire some scale. You have expensive public infrastructure, let's be honest. Water and wastewater is expensive public infrastructure. You need customers. And I think if you were to proceed with this, you're adding scale, if you will. You're adding customer to a customer base with existing infrastructure, and that seems to me a very, very good thing to do.
Okay.
So two other things. Mr. Mayor, you have a question? You were...
No, sir, I was
Oh.
wondering if any of our other council members had questions. I just wanted to ask you, as soon as you can get that information to us, I'd appreciate it, as what Ms. Hatch asked.
Yeah, again,
for.
I'm sorry I don't have it. I just wasn't
No
prepared for it.
problem.
No problem.
Ms.
Oh, just briefly, as I indicated earlier with Mr. Duffy, when we had, I had questions as we got through the package. I tried to get with Mr. Duffy and burn through those this last week, but not everyone's had time to have all their questions put together, I guess. Yes, ma'am.
It's a little bit difficult for us as a council to say, okay, we'll find out that information later when we're voting on it tonight. And that's my problem with getting the information later.
Yes, ma'am.
And there is certainly a ballpark figure. You've given it to us before, and I really think, honestly, in terms of disclosure for the public, I'm not saying it's excessive. I'm not saying, it's out of the ballpark. I just think it's something that the public has a right to know while we're talking about this.
You bet. Well, as our town's financial advisors, they're not doing this as a charity, but yeah, if you can give us anything resembling a ballpark.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm Michael Cafiso with Greenberg Traurig. We're bond counsel. We're special counsel basically in terms of representing you for purposes of getting this done. And I don't want to discount the question or the importance of the financial information, but I want to make sure you understand what the purpose of the actions tonight are. We will be back before you with the final approval of the loan agreement and the actual costs involved with the loan agreement. The purposes of the resolutions tonight are administrative requirements of the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. They are administrative resolutions. They require that you adopt a resolution to show your intent to comply with their requirements. That's what this is. So again, I don't want to discount the question. I'm not trying to minimize the request of the council people. I just want to make sure you understand what the purpose of this resolution is and that that's what it is.
You bet. We don't want to lose sight of the ball, which is hopefully getting refinancing finished on the wastewater plant. Did you have further stuff in your presentation?
Couple of things. One is when I was sitting back there, I was looking at some of the USDA loans that we did back in '07 and '08, and one of the things we may want to also talk to WIFA about, and it's not too late, of course, is to maybe refinance out some of those at some lower rates. Those are all out at 4 1/8 or 4.125%. I was looking at that, and I was kind of doing the math in my head. If we got 2% money on that, maybe it makes sense to refinance that and save some money on the 2007, 2008 RD loans. WIFA has some fairly stringent restrictions on refinancing, but if you add a new money project in, they're open to it. So it's just something I wanted to share. Again, trying to help you with the pressure of your rates as a possibility. So we'll look into that for you if you would like us to. The other thing I was just going to add, there was a question asked about the excise taxes, I think the sales taxes. Back in '07 and '08, when we worked with WIFA, because of the deteriorating financial condition of your utilities, WIFA required that the town pledge some of its excise taxes, okay, on parity with some of their outstanding obligations. So the way this is going to shake out is there is going to be a continued excise tax pledge of revenues, okay, to secure these. And the way we'll set it up is that we will release the excise tax pledge once your financial system of your water and your wastewater system are achieving additional financial stability. It'll be released off. So it doesn't preclude you from using your excise taxes, your state shared revenues, because we know you need those for your budget. WIFA required it. They're going to require it for this, but we will have release provisions in connection with that. So that's another additional detail that we'll be back with you at the next meeting, obviously to share the fee questions, which we're glad to do. And those were really the other 2 or 3 things I wanted to chat with council about.
Okay. Yes, sir. At the last WIFA presentation I was at, they indicated that sometimes they require not just the utility funds, but they require a pledge of excise taxes. Yes, sir.
The reason why this sales tax usage concerns me is that in talking to some of the people in the town here, the reason why they voted against this GO bond issue is because people that weren't tied into the sewer system or the water system were being asked to pay off the bill. Whereas the way this is written up, we're asking them to do the same thing again. Or we could possibly just do it if it goes through the way it's written up. That's my concern.
Well, the repayment of the clean water and drinking water loan that Mr. Duffy presented to you is based on the economics that he presented, which is out of, utility revenues, with some general fund subsidy that's over time going to go down. And that's the way that we're going to have to do it. WIFA's going to require it until you get to that 120 coverage on both your water and wastewater system.
Can we write that in there?
Just for clarification, we have been subsidizing water and wastewater for several years now. We're trying to get out from under that. We're trying to get the plant paid off and trying to get enough of a customer base to where it's in the black. Yes, ma'am.
By way of a follow-up question, what you're saying is the only way we can get this WIFA loan is if we agree to this?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes, sir. Mr. Turner.
Okay, and with that being said, I understand that concern, but am I not correct in saying that's the last resort? That's like a personal guarantee on a business loan or something. If you default, then you have to go back to that. It's not the intention.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay.
It might be helpful too, just again, we hate to keep deferring things to the next meeting, but to the councilman's question, and it's a great question, you will see specifically in the loan agreement that you're going to enter into, the actual loan agreement where you're promising to do what you need to do with WIFA, the release provisions that Mr. Reeder just mentioned. So there'll be a provision that says your excise taxes stay, as the gentleman just mentioned, as a guarantee basically, but once you reach that 120 coverage for a couple of years, it automatically falls off. So we're not making that up, it's reality. And I think everything that your finance director showed you is an effort to get to that ultimate goal. And that's why it's there. And frankly, it's been there since 2007, 8, when we did the Chino Meadows project.
Did you have a follow-up, Mr. Wojcik, or did that answer your question? Yes, sir. As I said, the last WIFA presentation I went to, they as a rule, require that, like Mr. Turner said, as a guarantee that they'll get their money back. So, all right.
I
Yes,
have
ma'am.
another question for Mr. Duffy. On page 17 of the combined projects, okay, when you're down here to your total loan amounts, you have a total of $6,440,171.
Mhm.
Should that not be $6,872,671?
Yeah, it's the same thing, the 300,000 and the 132.5 did not get added to the total here.
Okay.
So it didn't,
How does that change the amount that the total loan amount would be with approximately $500,000 difference in amounts there? I
Well-
think, would it be advisable to table this until all the correct figures are in, plus the fact we'll have
No,
Mr.
ma'am.
Reader's numbers then?
no, ma'am. If you just forget the total column, it is incorrect. But the drinking water column is correct, and the clean water column are correct. So the total, we're asking you to pass a resolution for a loan for drinking water for $4,545,000, for clean water for $3,442,500, not to exceed those two amounts. And because we know we're going to have forgivable principal, we know we're going to have the 478 is guaranteed, we know we're going to have or 636, at least that, but it could be significantly different. There's also going to be, as I said, we're going to be adding in our cost of issuance, which are Mr. Cafiso's and Mr. Reader's fees and other fees that it costs to actually consummate these transactions. And so at the end of the day, when you pass, the next time we meet with you on this, we will bring you the loan documents that will have the project amounts of $4,545,000, less of forgivable principal, plus any cost of issuance, which will give us a net loan amount of around $3,900,000. So I'm just showing those bottom numbers as what our estimates are today, but they are going to change. And when you approve the final loan amounts, you're going to approve one for the drinking water, one for the clean water. I did make a mistake on this total column. I didn't bring the 300,000 over, the 132 over. But I'm just showing, so ignore the total column, but these amounts here are correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Any discussion amongst council before I ask for public input?
I got just one comment on this. We're always talking about to let the public understand where we're at on this. I think I like simplifying all this stuff as far as the numbers are concerned. And the way I see this is we're going out to pre-approve a loan to buy a house. Okay, that's what we're doing this evening. If everything isn't the way we want it when it comes back to us, we don't have to buy the house. Okay, this is just getting our financing, getting all our ducks in a row, so once business is done, we can buy if we want to buy.
Okay, thank you. Oh, one thing I would add to that, the wastewater treatment plant, we've already been living in the house for a while, so sort of need to deal with
And it's
that.
costing a lot of money.
And it's costing us a lot of money.
And we still want to be able to flush.
And we keep planting flowers, and it just doesn't smell any better. All right. From our public, traditionally, in our order of business, we'll have our presentations and reports, questions from the council, and public input is an optional part of our meeting, but this is one that I would like to ask our public if they would have any questions on. Fine.
I'm so
Mr.
sorry to
Smith.
interrupt, and I hate to make the meeting longer, but I do have a couple of slides I'd like to go over with council, if it's appropriate.
You bet.
There's Bambi.
Mayor, council, thank you for the time this evening. Joe and Mark, and Mr. Cafiso have done an excellent job of talking to you about the details of this matter at hand. I think it's important to take a step back and look at the context of this issue within the town's fiscal operation as an organization. 3 years ago, we realized we had an operational problem. We got together in a strategic format, and we solved the operational problem and bought ourselves enough time to find out what was really wrong with the town's finances and come up with a permanent solution. We brought this picture to the council, and the council said, let's get a public committee together. A committee worked for 2 years, and the bond issue didn't survive the vote. So here we stand today. We've seen staff's very familiar with this picture, and we understand what it's going to take in order for the town to survive the deficits that are coming. This chart is a chart of the cumulative deficits that the water and sewer systems will create over the next 5 to 7 years. If you look at, as Joe said, the do-nothing option, you're going to create over the next 5 years or so $2.5 million in deficits. That means you're going to have to take $2.5 million out of the general fund over the next 5 years. That does not include the $2 million that are already owed the general fund. When you look at my colors are a little different than Joe's, I'm sorry, but when you look at the combined action of revenue bond financing for the fan settlement and the Prescott acquisition, you wind up with deficits that skim the $1 million mark. This is zero up here. These are the negative numbers coming out of your enterprises that must be met in order for them to operate. That means you're taking this out of the general fund. The administration's recommendation is going to be that if you're going to sustain $1 million a year in deficits coming at you, you also need to sustain the reserve funds that have been put back for a rainy day. We don't know what's going to happen at the state level. We have already been told they're having trouble with their budget. If they come back and sweep HERF completely, or they entertain some sort of sales tax, it's going to hurt us. And we're not going to have the cash that we need to make our operational year. As you contemplate making this decision tonight, when we come to you in the budget process after the holidays, we're going to be talking to you about what's it going to take for the next 3 to 4 financial cycles for the town to get back in the black. And when we do get back in the black, what kind of posture do we want to be in then? Do we want to have reserves in our pocket so that we can act quickly and try to do something positive? Or are we going to be depleted as we were 3 years ago and sitting on zero? So we're going to be bringing information to you in the next budget cycle that outlines the kinds of things that you might do to squeeze $1 million worth of expenses out of your budget. When you squeeze those out of your budget, you're going to be spending them on that deficit over there in the enterprise funds. But that will leave your reserve funds intact. If you look at this chart, I stole this straight out of Joe's slide deck. You can see this green line skims pretty deep into your reserves, and it comes pretty close to hitting your solvency line. If you squeeze $1 million out of your expenses next year, and you fund this deficit with that $1 million, you will have that $1 million left over in your reserves where they belong. Because over the next 3 to 5 years, you need to come through this with a position of strength. We can't control what the state and the Fed are going to do to us. The silver lining, we stand a really good chance of getting some significant money from the EDA and creating some jobs, and the state is subsidizing our match funding for that. Road work on the south end associated with the ADOT, IGA, and other work that we've done for legal settlement purposes may spurn some economic development. Just acquiring the Prescott water system, dropping the rates, dropping the connection fees, and eliminating the necessity that somebody install tanks and pumps when they develop their property will encourage economic development. We're working with ADOT. We know that Alco's, that lease there is in play. The Old Home Manor Industrial Park Molly Ray hasn't kicked off because they cannot afford the Prescott rates and impact fees. Bright Star, Highlands Ranch, the residential resources, they're all going to be generating homes year over year. And if you squeeze your budget right, if you strategically retreat from some of your expenses and you retain your reserves, when you do come out the other side of the financial stress, it will be easy, if you've done it the right way, to crank those back up if that's what council desires. But we need a strategic retreat that's well planned. At some point, these items still hang out there. They've not been addressed. At some point, we need to roll our sales tax back so that we're more competitive with our surrounding markets. We need to allocate $1 million a year for road work for 6 years at some point. That would get you, with a chip seal, somewhere around 20 miles a year, which after about 6 years, you'd be on top of your maintenance schedule again. At some point, the enterprises need to pay the general fund back $2 million. This does not include the cost of money, and you must include that when they pay that back, or they are shortchanging the general fund. You need capital asset reserves. $300,000 would be a great place to start. That's half of the schedule that Joe showed you here. You have $60 million in depreciable assets and $0 in capital reserves. I'm going to say that again. You have $60 million in assets and $0 in capital reserves. Water and sewer funds need to accumulate their own capital reserves so you can facilitate extensions when you need to take advantage of opportunities. That's what I wanted to show you from a macro scale. We'll be bringing a budget process to you to empower you to decide what you want to do with the finances in the next couple of financial cycles, so that you can, if you choose, maintain those reserve funds. Are there any questions?
Any questions from council? Yes, ma'am.
You talked about the state underwriting the matching funds for the EDA grant. All I know of is $250,000. You asked for a $2 million grant. Now, you brought this up. You gave us $250,000. We're required to have a 40%, perhaps a 30% match. How is the state underwriting that full 40%?
I didn't say they were underwriting the full 40%. They are providing $250,000 through the Commerce Authority, and staff is working diligently to assemble those funds from other sources. If you find at the end of the day that you've got a $3 million grant package in front of you and you need to come up with $150,000, our recommendation is going to be to go to USDA and borrow from rural development at 0% interest the funds that you need for the rest. Or to seek private contributions.
We'll cross that bridge when we
Yeah,
come
we need
to
more
it.
than
Yes, ma'am.
150,000. That's $250,000 doesn't come anywhere near the 40%. I just want to make it clear
You
that
bet.
there's more to that than what's being said here.
Right, and as I said, we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. Mr. Smith brought up basically what I attempted to bring up in the last couple of mayor's reports. Even had the GO bond passed, we still got some belt tightening to do, even if the GO bond had passed. Doing this, we're gonna have to tighten our belts. There's no two ways about it, and our citizens are going to get to see how the town council addresses some of those things. Because no matter where we tighten our belt, it's going to hurt somebody in order to keep something else afloat. And so your council will have some difficult times ahead in the year to come. The second thing that I wanted to bring up is this purchase of the Prescott water system, this getting the sewer plant paid off. These are things that should have been done some time ago. They just should have. And we're working through them now. It makes us unpopular, but that's the way it is. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, if I might clarify, because this question has come to me some 4 times during this week in talking about this issue. The general public needs to know that there's already been, it's been referred to several times in this presentation, that the council already cut a deal with Mr. Fan and agreed to pay him off with 9% interest per year. and much of the public wasn't aware that we have already cut that deal. That's what's been referred to here during this evening about refinancing, essentially.
Okay. The neat thing about that, and the phrase "cut a deal" makes it sound like it's something bad. I believe we owed Mr. Fan right around $5 million.
Yes, Mayor and Council, it was $5.034 million that was owed. We negotiated that figure down to $3.31 million. And the 9% interest does not begin to accrue until after the change of the year. So if we're successful in accessing the WIFA funding and we get that to Mr. Fan prior to the turn of the year, we will pay no interest to Mr. Fan.
Okay. And the second part of that is under consent agenda item 6 alpha, which was brought up earlier this evening. That was when we as a council voted on that settlement agreement. And I think we'd have been remiss in throwing $1.5 million savings into the trash. I think it was a reasonably good thing for us to instead of paying a full $5 million to get about $3.5 million out of it. But yes, it was voted on, and it was, as I said, October 7th, 2014. It's consent agenda item A. That was voted on by our council. Were there any other questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Smith? Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor, you had some comments.
I've been
here.
through this sort of bond issue before three times out in the business world. So I fairly well understand it. I know where we are with it. I think we need to do this process, get it started. Of course, most of the things, any contractual stuff, will come back to this council for approval, but we need to start the loan process. So I'm going to recommend that we adopt resolution number 14-1051 and 14-1052, authorizing the loan applications with the transpositions changed and the specific interest rate corrected.
Oh, okay. If you would, could we please hold off on that? And I'll ask our public if they have any input, and then we'll go ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. You look familiar.
Hopefully I have a quick question. My name is Sherry Romley. I'm a resident of Chino Valley, mayor and council. And I just have a question about the personnel. I heard from the Public Works Director that he may need additional people, and I didn't see any numbers. Is it on? Oh, there. And I didn't see any numbers in there that would cover additional personnel and their employee-related expenses. So I was wondering if it was in there, or, and I missed it, or if we were going to have to take personnel funds from somewhere else to be able to cover it for, especially when Fan goes away, Will Hoyt goes away. They have, people that do a lot of their work. So I was just wondering about that.
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
I believe Mr. Duffy's going to answer that.
And it was actually included in the estimated $250,000 operating costs, additional operating costs of the wastewater treatment plant. So it was included in it.
Okay.
We're not sure. We know we need at least one operator, and for right now, we'll start with there.
Okay. Oh, as I referred to earlier, Mr. Duffy had sent this presentation out to the council, I believe it was late last week, because I came boiling into his office with about 30 questions. I wanted him to have those not only for myself, but I wanted him to present our audience with them, because if I have the questions, more than likely our audience would have them. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, that's why I asked the question about whether, because these were all ballpark figures and it was the maximum we would need. That's why I asked the question about, what happens if there's leftover, because we're shooting probably well beyond what we need.
You bet. I was hoping with the leftover funds we could have a statue of our vice mayor made, but I don't think that'll pass.
A little bitty one, right? A little bitty one?
I don't think WIFA would approve that.
You
Okay.
mean to stand at the wastewater treatment plant?
You stole my thunder. That's exactly where I wanted to put it. Okay. Anyone else from our audience? Questions? Okay. As I said, in the next, yes, sir, as you're coming up, as I said, in the next 6 months, you had a question? In the next 6 months, we will be looking at our next year's budget, and we're going to have some hard decisions to make. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, I was on the Water and Sewer Bond Committee, and this was the option that some of us on that committee thought was best to go with, and we stated our opinions to that very openly, and I'm glad it's come before the council now, and I recommend that you go forward with it.
Cool. Thank you, sir. And I had a copy of our old questionnaire that we sent out, the one that we had the small response from our community on, but we had 49% indicated that they would support the sale of general revenue bonds, to your point. All right. If there's no other comments from our audience, any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
With the acquisition of the Wilhoit, will we need another certified, qualified person to be in charge of that treatment plant as well?
I would not think so, but Mr. Gretman?
Technically, what they have there is not a treatment plant. It's all they do is chlorinate and take out arsenic. We do the same things at our existing Bright Star and Country West facilities. No new additional staff are needed on the water side. And the only reason why we need somebody on the sewer side is because we're getting into a plant before where we haven't had a plant before. And under DEQ regulations, we have to have 2 operators on staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from, all right. Okay, the chair would now entertain yours.
I forgot what I did before. I recommend that we adopt resolution number 141051 and 141052, authorizing the loan applications, taking into account the amendments for the transaction, the transposition of numbers, and the percentages that were
Second it.
annotated wrong incorrectly.
Let's see, you aroused, yes, ma'am.
You
We
woke
got a
me up.
question coming.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, is that recommendation a motion?
I make a motion
Thank you.
Thank you.
and form a recommendation. Yeah.
Don't make her mad. Okay.
I just wanted to wake her up.
That was a motion. All right. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And as was pointed out earlier by Mr. Duffy, this basically is an authorization to begin that paperwork to apply for the loans. All right.
We need a break.
We need a break? No group hug, I take it. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a break and meet back here at 8 o'clock. Would that be okay? All right. Cool.
Yeah, every minute.
Oh, we got time.
Okay, we're starting to get back in here.
I'm washing where?
Okay, what's your verdict on the chocolate, guys?
I like it.
You know, that was very good.
It was very good.
They have it even better.
All right, we're missing. He should come wandering in a moment. I'm gonna wipe the fuse on this puppy.
Where's Lon? We lost Lon.
I don't know where he went. I can imagine where he went, but I don't know for sure where he went.
Yeah, I don't know if there's speakers in there. That was funny when his phone played that
Huh?
big. His phone, Lon's phone.
Oh, yeah. He didn't know how to turn it off.
Couldn't get it. Is Mr. Turner in the building?
Evidently, Mr. Turner's not
Not available for
available. He's in
comments.
this question.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis has left the building, Mr. Turner.
Yeah, yeah. There he is, there's Elvis.
Yeah, we got a boatload of building codes to go through. Okay, we're back in session. Our next action item is item 7C, consideration and possible action to adopt ordinance number 14-790, repealing previous ordinances related to previous versions of the International Building Codes, adopting the Town of Chino Valley Building and Technical Code Amendments, 2015 edition, by reference, and amending Town Code Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 150 Building Regulations, and by amending sections related to the 2012 version of the International Codes and 2011 edition of the National Electric Code. Mr. Trout, fire
That was a
up.
mouthful. Mr. Mayor, Council, good evening. If it suits you, I'll just quickly explain the adoption process and what the amendments actually are. What we've done, starting, I think, in 2007, when you guys adopted the 2006 codes, that was the first time that the whole Quad Cities have been on the same building code. We've tried for quite some time to get it that way. It's where the builders are used to the same rules everywhere.
Right.
So in the adoption process, I mean, the amendments are just part of it. It's an international building code, so some things have to be amended just to suit our areas. You know, you have 39 pages of amendments. It's pretty redundant, the amendment process. You have to cite the code section that you're amending, what you're amending it to, and sometimes it's just a word or, you know, a measurement. It's something that small. So there's not a whole lot in it. I mean, it's pretty, it's not very much for considering it's over 3,000 pages of code text that we're amending. So, and in doing so, we tried to stay as close with our neighbors as we could. And I think we're right in line with everybody. Prescott Valley is already enforcing the 2012. The county and Prescott are going January 1st is what we're looking to do as well.
Excellent.
So any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Ms. Hatch.
Just for the, sorry, I had to make sure it was turned on. Just for the benefit of the public, some years ago when the changes were made, there was a requirement of sprinklers, which was greatly
Thank you.
removed because not everybody was they were on wells or even for public places. I mean,
And
could you just comment for the public how that's handled?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for bringing that up. There's actually, real quick, I'll just hit on 3 areas that we really looked at. One was, this is the first code cycle, 2012, where they required residential sprinklers. Well, we know in Chino Valley that that's just not, I mean, you're talking $15,000 to, you know, added to the price of a 2,000 square foot house. So that's one thing we struck completely, as did everyone else, all our neighbors. The other is the energy code. In 2006, the city of Prescott and and the county adopted and enforced portions of that. Because we took some federal money, are on the hook to be, by 2017, up to 2012 code standards. So you'll see in the adoption, or I don't know if it's in the ordinance, in the ordinance, that we will be adopting it. The 2012 Energy Code will be implementing it in increments. So it'll be 15, 16, and 17. So it's just, we do everything we can to make this as user-friendly for the builders as we can. We're not trying to hurt them. We're not rewriting the books or adding things. We're mostly removing or just changing the text and make it a little bit easier for them to use.
All right. Just for our audience's benefit also, I called Mr. Trout and I said, this is huge with me. Number one is compatibility with our neighboring communities, and number two, that we are not making things more difficult
Absolutely
for our businesses and our builders. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Trout? All right. And then we'll be doing, in item D, we'll be doing the fire district stuff in a few moments. So, all right. No further questions on item C. The chair would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance number 14790, repealing ordinance numbers 04570, 07-686, 07-689, and 09-721, adopting the Town of Chino Valley Building and Technical Code Amendments 2015 edition by reference and amending the Town Code sections 1.50.001 and 1.50.004.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item D, consideration and possible action to adopt ordinance number 14-791, adopting the Chino Valley Fire District 2012 International Fire Code by reference and amending the Town Code Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 153, Fire Prevention and Protection, Section 153.001, International Fire Code adopted. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Again, good evening. This is, you should have the resolutions that that the fire board has passed already in there. The process of us adopting it is just so it's enforceable through the town code. But basically, we hand all the fire stuff off to the fire district, and I apologize. Rick Chase is here from Chino Valley Fire District, the fire marshal. I sat in on their board meeting when they did their code adoption stuff, and it was maybe 45 minutes, so I probably owe him at least a case of beer for keeping him here for 2.5 hours.
You bet.
That's basically it. Their board has already adopted that stuff. We're just asking you to adopt it so we can enforce it through the town code.
Okay, thank you. All right, were there any questions from our council? All right, the chair would entertain them.
I did have one.
Yes, sir.
And on 122, and this is regarding fireworks. I was hoping to get a hold of you and ask you this beforehand, but I didn't get a chance to. So, under permit fees, 4 lines down, personal standby person. What is that?
Can you tell me the code section? I'm sorry, I don't have page numbers.
Oh, you don't have this?
No,
Okay.
not.
Well, this
Only
isn't
for a second,
actually
I'll
the,
just take this too. It's page 122, is it not, Mr.
yeah,
Attorney?
122, under permit fees.
Oh.
It's part of the requirements.
Oh, okay.
And it has the insurance and the plan review, but I didn't understand what the personal standby.
This is the fire district. I don't know, Rick, are you able to answer that? Sure.
Yeah. Hello, Mayor and council members. Yeah, to answer that one, typically at fireworks shows, when they're in a jurisdiction, we have a standby person. What we do is we come there and we, once the fireworks vendors have their event set up, we come there and we do what's called an event setup check. We make sure that everything is up to par, up to code, safe, safe as it can be, and then we stand by just in case something was to happen. We stand by and we watch where the fallout zone is to make sure that nothing ignites any of the dry grasses. We ensure that there's either a fire extinguisher, a portable water can, some kind of a way to extinguish something if it happened quickly. Usually in most jurisdictions, you have engine crews, engine companies, and other fire personnel who will also assist with this. And typically, we just, all around the event, we'll talk on the radios, keep each other informed if something did ignite somewhere. So basically, the standby person is somebody who's there specifically designated to that show itself and to make sure that, everything's being watched.
Okay, did that answer your question?
So that
Mr.
is
Attorney?
a standby person.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and usually, it's the fire department that has that person there. And again, I think it's either based upon jurisdiction, either town or district, on if they want to provide that person there as a safety.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay,
yeah, because
so
I'm not sure
really, So really, nothing's changing from the last couple of years. We've had fireworks or whatever. It's
Yeah, I don't believe so. I'm not sure what Chino Valley did with the fireworks shows over the last few years. But I know in the town of Prescott Valley, we've always had a person there, just as that standby person. We get there ahead of time, and then we usually stay after 45 minutes to make sure that there's no hot spots that are just laying around. So it's just a safety thing before and after the show and during.
okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Were there
Mayor?
any other questions regarding the fire code? Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I have a question. Are these new fees that are being adopted or changes to old fees?
That's a good question. I am not 100% sure what Chino Valley did in the past for fees. I know that this is a fee schedule that Central Yavapai has had. When we adopted the code back in 2013, we did a survey with 5 like departments around the state just to see what all their fees were, as well as the city of Prescott, and tried to keep everything on par, which really our fees are lower than most jurisdictions. We just didn't want to take that big jump up. So I'm not positive on what Chino Valley has been doing for their fees in the past. I know the fire marshal that was here, Art Castricone, for a while, we were all meeting Prescott Fire, Central Yavapai Fire, and Chino Valley to go over fees, amendments, all of that, so we would all be, pretty much on the same page throughout the Tri-City area, as Dan was saying. So I'm not sure what it was in the past, but this is the fee schedule we have adopted.
Did that satisfy your
You got a
question, Mrs. Smith?
Sure.
Oh, excuse me. We have
I'm
a-
sorry. And these fees are not, the town of Chino Valley is not collecting these fees. These are, I'm sorry, you want to get in there? Sure, Gary. Okay.
Gary Warren, Chairman of the Chino Valley Fire District. My understanding of those fees are that we've had them in the past, haven't had a vehicle or enforced them, and we're trying to do some house cleaning and get up on that. So this will allow us to collect on those. They haven't done a good job in the past with previous administrations on collecting those fees. But my understanding, those have been there for years. So it's an update in a way.
Okay, it will, by our ratifying this and allowing that to go under, I guess, making it enforceable through the town code, is that something that we jumped the gun on, Ms. Smiley?
My issue is when the town adopts new fees or revises old fees and changes the fees, there is a statutory requirement to post them for, I believe, 60 days before they're effective. So if these are new fees, they need to be posted before they can become effective, or if they're changes to previously adopted fees. So that being the case, I don't know, without knowing whether or not they're existing fees, whether the fee schedule can be adopted along with the amendments.
Yeah, we're
So-
not asking to adopt anything but the amendments, and the ordinance is pretty clear in saying that, so it would be just through that last page I included to you, the resolutions that went to their fire board, and apparently there was, their fee schedule was attached to that, but all we're looking to do is just through section,
That's not what that's not what the motion.
section D 103.3, turning radius, and then it gets into some occupancy classifications, and that's the end of their amendments.
Until we can post it.
So who would be collecting these fees then? The fire district, correct? Not the town?
That's their fee schedule. Yeah,
Right.
this shouldn't have been really even included in the packet.
Okay.
This is theirs.
Okay, so the amendments do not include the fee
They do
schedule?
not.
Okay, then I'm fine.
Okay.
No, I included the resolutions, their resolutions just for your benefit.
Okay, and so the motion would be would have to define that we are accepting the amendments without the fee
Without the fee
schedule?
schedule.
Would that be correct?
Right,
Okay,
right.
okay.
And it can be, you've got your recommended action. move to adopt ordinance number 14790, blah, 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 as this is written on page 1 of, or page 57, where it
Okay.
says recommended action.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. So you've got that down, you're going to make an
Yeah, I'm not
amendment?
really comfortable with it, but, because I still have concern about the fee schedule.
Yes, sir. Let me turn that back down.
I still have concern about the fee schedule, if these are going to be collected, and can we legally?
Not, we won't be collecting.
If you're
Yes,
still
ma'am.
Are
concerned.
we going to be paying them, the town?
No.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay, you had a question, ma'am?
you just said no, but the fire district is the one that set those fees. How can you say no for the fire district?
I thought the question was, are we paying them?
Well,
We're not paying or collecting them. This is just their fee schedule that.
yeah,
they're-
but if we put an event on as a town, we may well be responsible
Oh.
for those fees.
If that's the question, then I didn't understand that, and I don't have the answer for that.
Yeah, I would imagine as a town, we'd, if we were putting on a fireworks event or whatever, then we'd have to, if either pay the fee or come before town council and see if the fee can be waived.
This is Chino Valley Fire District's permit and fee schedule, not ours. Can we just remove it?
Yes.
Because we're not, it's not ours.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
It should never have been in the packets. I apologize. Like I said, I sent the resolutions that went through their board, and this
Okay.
was included in it.
And if the fire board wishes us to approve that, and they do need to post it or whatever they need to do, then they can bring that back
They've already-
separately.
yeah, they've
That's-
already done it and ratified
It's
it.
not our last council meeting,
No.
so, okay. Does that satisfy you, sir?
Just to try to clear it up a little, I know the fire code does have a section where it entitles either departments or districts to get their own fee schedule, and all departments pretty much have this type of fee schedule, and again, that's why we did that survey to see where ours was in line. And so as far as the standby and all that, that's all just for the district itself, all those fees. It's just something for plan review fees, standby personnel and stuff like that, so it shouldn't affect, the town in any way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Omitting that page, yes.
Okay, easy
Omitting the
enough.
fee schedule.
We now have we can
Yeah.
have a motion.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 14971, adopting the Chino Valley Fire District 2012 International Fire Code by reference and amending the Town Code Section 153-001, omitting Chino Valley Fire District permit and fee schedule on page 122 of 129.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, thank you, sir. Report by Council Member Mike Best with possible action regarding a report from the Council Public Safety Subcommittee pertaining to noise pollution from the Prescott Airport and airport expansion plans. Yes, sir.
I've sent a letter to Mr. Nicholas Reyes of the FAA District Division for our area. I was 2 weeks ago, and we were asking specific questions like definitions of what is noise sensitive, who is responsible for enforcing this, flight patterns of expanded airport, and as of yet, we have not received any answer from Mr. Reyes. It's probably being passed down from one to the other, but as soon as we receive information that I can give to a committee, we will have our safety committee, in which case we will address this issue.
Okay, thank you. So we don't need it. Yes, ma'am.
I spoke with one of the council members in Prescott and asked about the airport expansion.
Mhm.
I was told that the main reason they're doing it is to bring bigger fire planes in, and that they're required, because of the size of the kinds of planes that are now being used, to have a larger airport. Just point of information
All right.
regarding what I was told was one of the main issues with their
Okay,
expansion.
They're also looking at bringing in jets, and not so much passenger, but freight jets, which would go ahead and expedite their usage of the airport. And the fire planes, I think, is somewhat of a cover
We're not in an area where we need the planes. They fly out of Flagstaff.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay,
They're just
Mr.
going
Best.
ahead
I
and
don't
send
know.
what they want, but I need definitions.
I've seen them land there. I
thank
remember a few years ago, they dumped a bunch of their red fire stuff onto cars.
Now we're
So
gonna
they
ha-
do land there.
Now we're going to have the airport authority down on us.
All right.
That's
All right.
okay.
All right. When things turn western, those slurry bombers are really nice to have around.
You bet they are.
Folks really appreciate them. Anyway, Mr. Best is in hot pursuit of answers regarding noise from the airport.
It's just
And,
specific questions. It's not a general letter that they're going to send back and say, here, have a blanket letter. I need specific answers to go ahead and address our town people.
Okay. Do you need any direction? You're going to be, you're head of the safety committee, so as soon as you get that information back, I'm sure you'll convene the safety committee, correct?
Correct. We have a lot of people that are interested in this, so we should have a very good committee working on this, and we will announce it ahead of time in case any of our citizens want to be here.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right. Well, I suppose we don't need any action on item E. We can move forward onto item F. Consideration and possible action regarding council's procedure for appointing members to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Ms. Lewis, did you have a presentation of any kind, or? Okay. Please state your name.
Mud. Jamie Lewis, Town Clerk. Good evening. This is just an opportunity for council to discuss the current procedure for appointing people to mainly our Planning and Zoning Commission. We do have a procedure where the council appointment subcommittee reviews all applications for all of the public bodies, and they have the opportunity to review the applications, and if they want to, they can interview candidates, and the current procedure is for them to then make a recommendation to the council as to who to appoint. It has been discussed in the past making that process a little more standard, especially for boards such as the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Adjustment, because of the technical nature of the things that those committee members review. And some things that were done in the past is the entire council would interview candidates for Planning and Zoning Commission. That was done, probably about 15 years ago, for about 5 or 6 years. Again, having the subcommittee do it, but have them interview all candidates regardless. So you all just have some different options for how you want that procedure to go, and so that's what that item is about.
Okay. Now, I believe, Mr. Croft, you're in charge of the...
I am, and my recommendation is to let's let the committee take a look at this and bring back a recommendation to the council, and then discuss it at the council level.
If
Yes,
I might have
yes,
some
ma'am.
input, I was chair of the appointments committee for some time.
Mhm.
You always have the option. I mean, it's a committee that makes a
Of course.
recommendation. It's not laws, and I think if there were any concern by the council, we always have that option. I do have a problem with this defined commissioner description. It might be a recommended that they have these things, but I think to require them to have these things on page 127, I think that that's a bit much. We learn in our position about these things, and I think the more citizens that can learn about it, the more important to require that they, and I know when I was chair of that committee, we did look to see if they had a real estate background or some kind of background, but you don't always have that option, and we might end up without a quorum if we require it rather than recommend it. You know, I think you need to be a little bit careful about how stringent you are, and you might miss someone with a really good qualification that maybe misses one or two of those things, and I just think it ought to be more open than, you know, requiring all those things. Recommended might be a good thing to consider rather than specifically requiring it.
Okay, excellent. And I'm going to be recommending that it be sent to the committee to put this together, and that way the discussion can take place in that committee forum. Thank you, Ms. Hatch. And so I would make that motion.
I'll make a motion to send this problem back to the appointment committee for review and make a recommendation to come back to the full council and for a decision at that time.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We love it when something goes to committee, because then we don't have to see it for a while. Next item is item 8, executive session. Council may vote to recess the regular meeting and hold an executive session, which will not be open to the public for the following purposes. Pursuant to ARS 38-481.03A1 for discussion or consideration of employment, assignments, appointments, promotion, dismissal, salary of town manager Robert Smith, and pursuant to ARS 38-481.03A4 for discussion or consultation with the town attorney in order to consider its position and instruct the town attorney regarding the town's position regarding the contract with town manager Robert Smith. The chair would entertain a motion to recess and to go into executive.
Make a motion that we recess and go into executive session.
Second it.
Okay, a motion in 2 seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do we need a couple of moments, or is everybody good to go on in? Everybody's good to go in? Excellent.
You need to ask the old guys here whether.
All right, I'm good for going on in. Okay.
I want a few minutes.
Oh, cool, thank you. You need a couple of minutes, ma'am? Okay, we're back in session.
Mic back on.
Yeah, make sure your microphones are back on. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1 for discussion or consideration of employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, dismissal, salary of town manager Robert Smith, and pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A4 for discussion or consultation with the town attorney to consider its position and instruct the town attorney regarding the town's position regarding the contract with town manager Robert Smith, and we consulted and instructed our town attorney. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Don Wojcik, would you make the motion to adjourn?
I would.
Okay, he moves to adjourn. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Good night, Irene.